Why Media Foreign Policy Report? Why Media Foreign Policy Report? I want to start with US and Canada relationship. US and Canada relationship. Why do I want to start with US and Canada relationship as far as the Why Media Foreign Policy Report is concerned? Because we recently heard from two important leaders in Canada. One, we heard from our Prime Minister Mark Carney, and second, we heard from our Ontario's Premier Doug Ford. So there is always a challenge when you're dealing with US. There is always, I think the challenge is even more. It becomes exponential when you're dealing with Donald Trump. There's a lot of uncertainty there. I don't think so the deal is going to happen anytime soon. The Prime Minister office has already said this, that the deal won't happen anytime soon. This is what the Prime Minister Mark Carney has already clearly indicated. But it was very interesting when recently we saw Prime Minister Mark Carney and our Premier Doug Ford. Actually, they were announcing a deal between Ottawa and Ontario. So our federal government and our provincial government, they were announcing a deal to speed up the infrastructure projects. But the questions were mainly asked about how are we dealing with US. Our Prime Minister Mark Carney, he was quite calm. He didn't want to, position himself as the person who is quite aggressive. So he simply said that the deal may not happen anytime soon, but we're working with the US. And basically, his point was, and the later on the release by the Prime Minister office was that he has a bad deal. It's not at all good. So a no deal is better than a bad deal. That's what the position by the federal government. The questions will definitely be raised because that's what Mark Carney positioned himself, that he will be the person who will be getting us a US deal. That hasn't happened. So obviously, opposition will be raising the questions, media will be asking the questions, and Canadians will be asking the questions. But Doug Ford, when he came and he took the mic, Prime Minister Mark Carney was standing right behind him, and he was questioned that, what do you think about the ad that you played in US? Doug Ford, he didn't mince his words. He clearly said this. That was one of the best things that he did. That's according to Doug Ford. And he also said that that was watched by millions and billions of impressions this ad got. That's a claim by Doug Ford. And he thought that it was the best thing that he did, and he didn't back down. Doug Ford clearly said this, that different sectors are being attacked here in Ontario, whether it's the steel, aluminium, the auto sector. There are people who are losing jobs. So Doug Ford won't back down. This was his thing. And, while he was talking about this ad and everything, Prime Minister Mark Carney, he was making faces behind, and it didn't go unnoticed. One of the journalists did ask Doug Ford there and then that while you were talking about this ad, Prime Minister Mark Carney was standing right beside you, behind you. He made some face. Was that in support of Doug Ford, or was it an awkward moment? I'll leave it for you to judge that. But Doug Ford clearly said that. He said he's speaking for himself and he does understand Prime Minister Mark Carney. He has to deal directly with President Trump. So he appreciated that. And Doug Ford said that, but that's for the Prime Minister to do. Doug Ford, he was all guns blazing against US President Donald Trump. Anyways, we hope that Canada and US are able to resolve this issue. And Prime Minister Mark Carney, as he was mentioning, he gave an example also there that yes, whether it's the aluminum that we supply, US is reliant on Canada with all the supply chains in place. So Mark Carney was making a point that yes, as much as Canada needs US also needs Canada. So we'll leave it for 2026, early January 2026. Once again, the discussions will start. Let's see how it goes. The US rep has recently made some very interesting demands that Canada should give access in the dairy sector, and there are discussions on alcohol part as well, and some other sectors as well. So to finalize the deal between US and Canada is going to be a bit of a challenge, but we'll keep you posted on all the developments right here on Why Media Foreign Policy Report.